Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short. Today we're going to be looking at an abortion testimony, an abortion experience of a young woman who had an abortion. And I'm going to give some commentary to this because I think that she is giving an honest and true description of what she went through. And this is going to be probably a two-part series. But I want to give commentary because I think her situation is typical. And it pretty much covers all of the bases as to why abortion is a wrong, it's a sin, and can be totally avoided if we teach people the proper order of things. And we'll get into this as she talks. But let's jump into that commentary. Let's hear her testimony, and then let's make some commentary on it from a Christian perspective. So let's start the video.
There's not a lot about it on YouTube. I know when I was going through this, I was looking for all the help I could get and people's stories and experiences, just to see what it was going to be like and if I could go through with it, and just trying to validate my decision.
Okay, so here she is honest about what she was looking for. Let's set the context. She was thinking about killing her baby. She found out that she was pregnant. She found out that she was a mother already because she had a baby. She found out that she was pregnant. She's having a baby. She has a baby already. It's already been conceived. That baby has its own unique DNA and is now developing into a fully human being. And so she was looking online, the internet, for some testimonies and some experiences from other women, and she says to validate her own decision. So she was looking for ways that she can feel good about killing her baby. Now, that's not the way it's usually put at planned pregnancy, but that's exactly what she was going through. She had a crisis pregnancy, and she was trying to figure out what it's like to kill that child inside of her. And she couldn't find hardly any resources back then. This was about 2015.
Here we go. So I found out on May 19th of 2015, this year, at 19 years old, that I was pregnant. I had missed my period. It was about a week late, and it's not too unusual for me. I have messed up periods all the time, and being on the Depo shot and, on and off of it, it just messed up my cycle. So I was late, and
Okay, let's stop here and talk about what she's actually saying. Okay, she's 19 years old. It looks like she's in college or something equivalent to college. And she's found herself to be pregnant. Now, you don't just find yourself to be pregnant. You have to actually be honest and admit the context of the pregnancy. You don't get pregnant unless you're having sex. That's basic. So obviously she didn't say it, but she was having sex with her boyfriend. Okay, this is where the problem starts. God in His Word has an order and a will to human life and flourishing. And one of the basic orders is marriage, sex, pregnancy, baby. Okay, that's the order. That's God's divine will. So if you're single and you're 19 years old and you're following God's will and you're doing things according to His word as expressed in the Bible and as taught by Christianity, you will not find yourself pregnant. Again, the language is always, well, I just found myself pregnant. No, you were engaging in activity that produces pregnancy. It is no surprise that when a person is engaging in pregnancy and they're a woman, they will get pregnant. And she says she was on the birth control, and so it still happened. And that's a reality. There is no way to guarantee that you won't get pregnant if you're having sex before marriage. And even if you're on the birth control shot, this was a actual shot that women take, and it's good for 3 months or so, and it puts the chemicals into their bloodstream and prevents pregnancy, supposedly, but in her case, obviously it didn't. And that's what happens. All of these birth control measures have been known to fail. And so she was on birth control, which, again, there is no reason why a single person has to be on birth control if they're following God's will. Now, if you don't follow God's will, then all kinds of things will happen to you. Why? Because you're not following the instructions from the Creator, God Almighty. And so she is getting herself into trouble because she is defying the will of God. Here's the simple rule. Just do what God says, and things will be okay. Just do what He says, and your life will be a lot simpler, and things will appear in the right order. The order, again, is if you're single, you get married first, and then you have the context of a loving, covenantal relationship. Then you have sex, because then there's a safety net there. It's the family. And then you get pregnant, and it's not a crisis pregnancy. It's actually something that you rejoice in. And so the baby has a context, a loving father in this case, and the start of the family, and that's totally normal and natural. But see, she's doing something outside of God's will, and then she's saying, woe is me, because bad things happen. Well, don't do things outside of God's will, and they won't happen like this.
I was feeling some other symptoms. My breasts were very, very tender. But I got that sometimes before I started a period, so I thought, maybe that's just it, whatever. So I decided to take a test. So I went and I bought one, and I was with my friend, and I went to the bathroom, and I peed on it, and you're supposed to wait for that 2 minutes before your results show up. So I left it on the bathroom counter, and I went into the living room with my friend, and we were just talking for a bit, and then she said, okay, it's been 3 minutes, do you want me to check on it for you? And I said, yeah, I do. So she goes into the bathroom, and she yells, oh, dude, you're fine. You're good. Everything's fine. I was like, fuck, thank God. So there's only one line. And she's like, well, there's always that second line, right? That really faint line. And I was like, don't mess with me right now. Like, no. And she was like, well, isn't that how it's supposed to be? And I go into the bathroom, and I look at it, and I'm like, no. Like, I'm pregnant. Like, blew my mind. I started pacing around the whole living room and her house, and I was just like, what have I done? Like, oh my God. And
so here you have another situation where something that should be actually a situation of joy and of happiness and a blessing, because she has now a baby inside of her, and she's going to have a baby, and she's going to have a child, whether boy or girl, and this is going to be the source of great blessing for her life. Instead, because she is not operating in the will of God, because she is outside of the will of God, because she is disobeying God and doing what is wrong, instead of doing what is right, she is going to now suffer the consequences. And now a baby, a pregnancy, is now something of a crisis for her. And it's a burden and a grieving time and a sorrow time and a regret time, instead of the blessing that is supposed to be within the confines of a marriage covenant. And so, again, this is all on her because she didn't wait and have God's will fulfilled in her life.
I'm just freaking out, and she calmed me down. She said, look, let's go to the doctor's office right now, and they'll do a test on you, and we can know for sure. I was like, okay. So, by the way, this was my first test here. So it was that little faint line there. So, yeah, we get to the doctor's, and it was an hour and a half wait. So we decided to go to the park across the street and just sit on the swings and just talk. I also took this time to call my boyfriend and let him know that I had taken a test and it was positive, and that I was going to the doctor's to find out for sure. And the very first thing he said before he asked if I was okay or anything, he said, abortion, right? And I was like, we had talked about it before, if this were to happen, we were taking the precautions to not get pregnant. No.
Okay, again, she has the wrong perspective. Okay, she's not following God's will. She's not getting married first. She's not then having sexual relations with this boy or man in the context of a covenant of promises, of faithfulness, and so forth. She is having sex outside of marriage to some boy. She calls him up and says she's pregnant, and his reaction first off the bat is abortion. And she's disappointed in him? Why would she be disappointed in him? He didn't sign up for a lifetime covenant of marriage. He didn't promise to be faithful to her. He didn't promise to if they ever got pregnant, to raise a child and get married and do the right thing to do. No, he is just a kid, just like she is, and they're thinking they can get away with this because that's what society tells them. Oh, you can get away with this. You don't have to follow God's will. You can violate his sexual morals standards all up and down. No consequences at all. And then she gets pregnant, and the first thing out of his mouth is, oh, abortion, right? Because he just wants to make it go away. Because it's not within the context of a marriage. A husband would welcome the baby, say, oh, fantastic, great. But see, they're not married. And this is what happens when you're not married. And when you do your own thing and make up your own moral rules, then why is she disappointed in her boyfriend? She should realize, oh, this is just some guy that I was having sex with. He's not my husband. So why should I expect him to react like a husband within the context of a marriage would react? So she was living outside of God's will, but she was expecting sort of the reaction of the boy who got her pregnant to be different. But that's unrealistic. So she has a contradiction.
No, we weren't using condoms, but yes, we were using birth control, and I know it's not 100% effective, but that's what happened. So we had those talks before, and we agreed that if we were taking the precautions to prevent pregnancy, and pregnancy did happen, that we would terminate it because we weren't at a point in our lives, being young and not financially secure, that we weren't ready to bring a child into this world.
Okay, stop there. Also, again, we're seeing more and more foolishness. Not only does she have the wrong expectations, she was expecting her boyfriend to act like her husband. She was expecting some teenage boy that she's having sex with to respond like a faithfully committed husband would within the confines of a marriage relationship would. And no, it didn't happen that way, and she had no right to expect that her boyfriend would have any other reaction. Now, the reason why she has reaction is because she is thinking of this relationship as maybe a sort of semi-marriage, but that's not at all what the boy thought. And then she goes into this review of, well, they had talked about it, and that if they did get pregnant, they would terminate it because they're not ready at this point in their life to be parents. Well, here's the reality. Here's the truth. Here's the harsh, brutal reality. You already are parents because there's a baby that's been conceived, and that baby has her DNA and that baby has his DNA. That makes them parents. That makes her a mother. That makes him a father. So what they're actually saying is, if we have a baby, if there's a baby that our sexual relationship produces, we're going to kill our baby. We agree beforehand to kill our child. That's what they're actually saying. Now, they won't put it that way, but that's actually what it is. And this is not a human right. You don't have a right to kill an innocent child. The parents of the child don't have a right to kill the innocent child. This is just evil, but they don't understand that.
Nonetheless, it still bothered me that before he could say anything else, it was abortion, right? Just, it bothered me a little, but whatever.
Yep, it bothered you because you're thinking like a mother, and you don't have the right to think that way because you've already talked to your boyfriend about killing the baby. It's just all twisted, and this is why sin twists people in a knot.
Whatever. So, I should also mention at this time that 2 weeks before I found out I was pregnant, my boyfriend left on a trip to Europe. And so I was, besides my friends, I had nobody. And I didn't tell a lot of people. I told like my 2 closest friends. And that was it, because I needed someone to talk to.
You were alone because you weren't married. You weren't within the confines of a marriage, and you don't have the family support. See, this is not meant to happen this way, but you willed it to happen by disobeying God. So you shouldn't have to be alone, but you were alone because you were outside the will of God.
Big thing to go through. So yeah. It sucked. Anyway, so we get into the doctor's office and I do a test. He comes in, he says, "Congratulations, you are pregnant." And I said, "Oh." And he's like, "Well, is that what you want?" And I was like, "Well, no, like, I don't know."
So the doctor is operating under the assumption that a baby is a good thing. That a baby being pregnant is a blessing to a woman, and that I guess the doctor thought maybe this was a young woman who had been recently married and now she's experienced her first pregnancy. No, that is not the case. This woman is not married. She's unmarried, and now she's having a pregnancy. And is she happy? No, she's not happy. When she should be happy if she were in a marriage relationship. But she's not happy. And it twists everything up. So that's what sin does. Sin twists everything up and makes everything more difficult than it has to be.
I don't know. It was weird to be congratulated about it. I don't know. Whatever. So
now she's just trying to make light of it. Oh, well, whatever. But it's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I called my boyfriend again and I said, hey, like, yep, it's, I'm pregnant. Um, I'm not, I need some time to think about this and I need to tell my mom. And I called her right after the doctors and I said, hey, Mom, can I come over? I really need to talk to you. She said, is everything okay? And I said, I just need to talk to you. So I drove over and I get to her house. She's sitting on the couch and she looks at me and she mouths the word, are you pregnant? And I just hung my head and I give her a little nod and she's like, okay, let's go outside, let's talk. So I showed her the pregnancy test that I had, and I showed her the paperwork that I had gotten from the doctor because he wanted to book blood work and he wanted to book an ultrasound and, told me to get on prenatals and all this stuff that you would do if you were planning to keep the child. And she was like, this sucks, but we're gonna get through this and I'm here for you, and what are you thinking of doing? And I said, I'm not ready to become a parent. I have so many things to do. I'm supposed to be meeting my boyfriend in Europe in 2 weeks from now, and everything just, my whole world got turned upside down. And
Oh, okay, so she's weighing killing her baby because she's supposed to meet her boyfriend in Europe and she's not ready to be a mother, and so she's thinking about whether she should kill her child or have her child and have her world turned upside down. And you can see the sick and twisted way of thinking here. There should be no weighing of what to do. Obviously, but she's so far out of God's will that she actually thinks that she has a legitimate choice as to whether to kill her baby or have a child and raise it. And it just shows you the selfishness. She's weighing killing and murdering her baby over whether she should go to Europe and have a summer with her boyfriend over there. This is insane.
she said, okay, well, you go home, you take a night to yourself, you think about what you really want, and if abortion is what you really want, you need to call the clinic and set up an appointment time.
That is a terrible bit of advice by the parent. Go home, think about what you want to do, her parent told her, whether you want to kill your baby or have the child, and the parent will support her in either of those choices. No, that is not what a godly woman, mother, tells her daughter in this situation. The godly mother says to the daughter, of course you want to keep that child. That baby is your baby. That's your first baby. You are already a mother. You are already a parent. You may have a lot of things to do on your agenda, but this now has become your agenda for the time being. And so we need to trust God that in His sovereignty, this is within His will, and we will work within that reality. That's what the parents should have said. Instead, was basically saying, yeah, you can kill your child or keep it. It's up to you. No, God has already made it clear it's not up to the parents to make that choice. It's not up to the mother to kill her baby.
So I went home, and my way of therapy for myself is writing. So I just wrote all night in my journal, and it's really hard looking back at those entries, but things happen.
I can imagine it would be hard to see yourself and hear your thoughts and ideas on paper saying, pro and con, should I kill my baby? Pro, well, I want to go to Europe with my boyfriend. I want to finish my college education. I want to start my career. I'm not ready to take on that big responsibility. Or no, it would be wrong. And so on. Yeah, that would be painful to see someone actually taking the time to think about something that's really crystal clear, what's right to do, and that is to keep the child. But she's going to journal and figure out what she wants to do.
So in the morning, I woke up and I decided an abortion is what I wanted.
So no 19-year-old child should be able to have that right to make that choice. To murder someone created in the image of God is evil, and no 19-year-old girl or no person, no matter how old they are or how young they are, should have that right.
So I called the Kensington Clinic in Calgary, and since I don't live in a city that has an abortion clinic, I would have to wait until I was 6 weeks along in order to have a surgical procedure. So I was 5 weeks and 6 days at the time. Or no, 5 weeks. Yeah, just 5 weeks, 1 day when I found out. So I had to wait 9 days in order to go. By that time, I was 6 weeks, 3 days. My abortion was scheduled for the 29th of May. Yeah, so the day.
And so she had to live with the knowledge of the baby inside of her, her first child. She was waiting. She's on a list to have it killed, to have it murdered. She's bonding with this baby inside of her, and the baby is bonding with her, and yet she is walking her way toward the guillotine to chop off this child's head, so to speak.
Comes, and we get to the clinic, and
Okay, I'm going to stop here because we're going to pick it up in next episode. But this is really a tragedy that our society has allowed young women, or even any woman of any age, to have this choice. It is not a choice that any human being has a right to make. You do not choose whether to kill someone or not, made in the image of God, especially an innocent person. Yes, there are justifications for killing in time of war, in time of self-defense, and a number of other very strict and narrow other circumstances. But you don't kill an innocent child in the womb who has done nothing, hasn't sinned one time, has never committed a sin. And that child is completely innocent, trusting her mother to provide all that she needs as far as nourishment and everything. And the mother, instead of providing for that child, actually takes it to a butcher who kills it and cuts off its head and throws out its body. This is the ultimate betrayal of motherhood. And I feel sorry for this woman. I feel sorry that she was lied to and told that this was something she could do and it was a right, because it is most certainly is not a right. Well, we'll pick it up next week on part 2 of this abortion story.